It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Aggronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belgast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again, time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 278. Tonight I'm joined by Ammo.
Hello.
Ash.
Hi.
Kodra.
Howdy.
Tam.
Hello.
And Thalen.
Hello.
So, there's a game that came out this week that's kind of had mixed reactions, and I had been looking forward to it, so because I, played lots of ARPGs, and that game is Darksiders Genesis. And, technically it's an ARPG, but, it has no lineage to the traditional ARPGs that you might play. It doesn't really feel like a Diablo or a Torchlight or anything like that.
It's just a top-down action game.
Yeah, it's just a top-down action game. It reminds me of... let me think. Do you remember the Baldur's Gate games that came out for the PlayStation 2?
Yeah, Dark Legacy, I think. Oh, that's knowledge, but it was...
Dark Alliance?
Dark Alliance, that's the one.
It reminds me a lot of those games.
Those were a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a fun top-down action game where you switch back and forth between strife or war. And the game really wants me to play play strife, but I'm actually just playing a lot of war. Because, strife is a shooter. Basically playing strife is playing a twin-stick shooter. Playing war is playing a melee action game. I don't know where the other horsemen are at this timeline, because I think this is technically a prequel, but it feels a lot like the rest of the Darksiders games.
Are they ever going to advance the story?
No.
I don't think so, no. Maybe we'll see, a Darksiders War 2 and start the whole process over.
The first 3 games are all concurrent, I believe.
Right. It's basically the tale of each of the horsemen.
Right.
And this is apparently the events involving strife and war prior to the first game. So, okay. It's fine. That's probably damning it with faint praise. It's fine. It is a game that I kind of wish would have launched on all platforms at the same time, because this is very much more of a Switch game for me than it would be a PC game. It does not control well with mouse and keyboard. It really wants to have an analog stick, and the style of gameplay is the kind of thing I play a lot on my Switch. It does a better job of being that type of game than the Diablo 3 port for the Switch. It's a good game. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Hades, but not a ton.
I've mostly heard good things about this game.
Yeah, it's not
except for
bad.
maybe the story.
The story's kind of dumb. It's the same story that you've seen. It's just a different moment in time in that story. Strife is perfectly fine. Strife would probably I think Strife only really works in a top-down. You would have either had to turn Strife into an FPS or a top-down twin-stick shooter like this. I don't think Strife would have worked as a side-scroller or as a 3D platformer like the first game.
What is so I'm not familiar. What is the difference between the various knights? Why does Strife not work as a Zelda alike?
He's a gunner with 2 pistols.
Yeah, Strife also has some kind of a sword, but that's just if something gets close attack. It's not really well fleshed out. All of the fleshed out abilities for Strife are different kinds of shots. So yeah, it's a gunslinger. I don't think it would have worked well in a Zelda alike, but you would have had to have done. I don't know. Again, I think this works best as a top-down ARPG type game. Just because I don't think the formula worked right in the same kind of game as Darksiders 1. I mean, they're quickly...
Darksiders 1 was just a Zelda game.
Yeah.
Darksiders 2 was more action-y, like less Zelda, more God of War. Darksiders 3 was, let's make our version of Dark Souls.
Yeah.
So let's make our version of Diablo make sense too, as far as things the series can do.
Mm-hmm. Look, I mean, it can't just be a Larian thing, right? Of making a bunch of games in the same series of different genres.
Apparently not. I mean, they're all action games, so they're clearly all in the same genre.
Totally. I mean, like it's a perfectly good game. I would wait until February. Like, if you're interested in it, I would wait until February and pick it up for the Switch, because that's apparently when the Switch version's releasing.
So like, you say ARPG, and I'm like, okay, it's a Diablo-like. Is there anything that sort of sets it apart from a Diablo-like? Anything different they're doing?
There's a lot of movement and a lot of Zelda-ish. This thing now unlocks my ability to traverse this terrain. So, like, there's different kinds of jumps, and there's different objects that you can, like, swing on things when you see them out in the world. You've got like a hook shot kind of thing.
This does actually have like small puzzles, right?
Yeah. So like you have to figure out how to like jump over to this area and pull down a lever so that it opens up the way to go forward, and that kind of stuff. I mean, it's more involved than a Zelda game is traditionally with that kind of movement, but it's not. I don't know. It's not. It doesn't feel Metroidvania, but it does feel like you're adding different ways to traverse the content. I don't know if that makes any sense.
So yeah, that kind of makes sense. But it's not like things are being gated behind having access to this, because that's what, like, when you say it's not like a Metroidvania, that's kind of weird, because it sounded like a Metroidvania.
So the main difference is in a Metroidvania...
So is that a Metroidvania now thing, when it was a Zelda thing originally? Is that just what it is now?
I think so, yeah.
Everything is a Metroidvania thing.
It's a Metroid thing.
So the main difference, I think, is you are given new abilities moments before you're supposed to use them. And to the best of my knowledge, there's no real backtracking through levels.
Okay, so that's more of a Zelda-like thing then. Because Metroidvania definitely wants you to backtrack.
Right. I mean, and you're shown, like, this is how you do this thing, and you're reminded every time you get within range of the thing that you're supposed to do. So it just becomes like a way of traversing the zone. But it feels different than I'm just going to crawl across a map in a isometric 2D game. The biggest damning thing that I can say about this game is it needs some time to bake with its UI, because there is no indicator of where you exist on the mini-map, or on the map, period. And the map is not necessarily oriented... Like, when you're shown the map, it is not necessarily oriented in the same direction that you're looking at the map. So you kind of have to, like, the map is utterly useless. I'll say it like that. Like, if you get lost, you're better just roaming around than trying to look at the map and figure out where you need to go. And I got lost. I absolutely got lost. I'm not super far into it, so I can't really talk about the depth of the story past it's two horsemen on an adventure for the little skull things from the first game to maintain the balance in the world, and you're uncovering like the plot to invade the Earth and take out humanity.
I mean, they're clearly doomed to fail in that case.
Yeah, no, we know it happens. It's fine. It's not a bad game. Like, again, I think I would like it way better on the Switch, because it I don't know, like I don't like having to grab a controller when I'm at my PC. Like, I had to do it with Fallen Order, and that's fine. I went into that expecting it. I kind of expect PC games to have reasonable mouse and keyboard controls, especially if it's like an ARPG.
Last Remnant broke me of that expectation.
Okay, so it's also more of a twin stick, I'm guessing, then?
Yes. Yeah, so one stick controls your movement, like especially if you're playing Strife. One stick controls the direction you're moving, one stick controls what direction you're firing, and your trigger buttons fire your primary shot, which is unlimited, and your specialty shots, which you have a limited regenerating inventory of. The other weird thing about the game is it seems like it has a really, really, really sparse potion economy. And that fixes itself a little bit as you get to Volgoth or whatever the guy was that sold you stuff from the first game. He's back. And you can eventually buy this ability that anytime you pick up health after you are full life, it starts filling up your potions. Because, like, for most of the gameplay, you have, like, a potion until you somehow pick up another potion. Like, it doesn't auto-regen kind of like the Diablo 3 style that I'm more used to.
Like E-tanks.
Or even, like E-tanks. Like, or even Path of Exile has auto-generating health potions. But yeah, I mean, it more or less works. They're trying something different. I think it's the best possible way of having Strife be the kind of character they want it to be without turning it into an FPS. It might have been better as an FPS, but yeah, I don't know. But I definitely think it will be a good game on a platform like the Switch, whereas it feels a little lackluster maybe on a PC. Along the same lines as Darksiders Genesis, I also, for some reason this week, decided to check out where Wolcen was in its development. Because I had heard they had finished the first chapter of the game and it was completely playable. And
what's Wolcen?
Wolcen is a game we've talked about at some point in the past. Was a Kickstarter game. It's an ARPG built. It's a Diablo-alike that was built in the Crytek engine.
I mean, it was.
I think it still is. Like, you see splash screens for Crytek, so...
I guess that's fair.
But, like, it started off as a mod of some sorts for one of the Crytek games. And then it's evolved into kind of a full-fledged game. But when I played it before, it felt very tech demo-y. And now it's feeling like an actual proper game. And Ash, you were telling us before the show that apparently people are upset about it?
Some people are very mad about this game.
Really?
Mostly the Kickstarter backers are very mad about this game.
Is it not what they kickstarted?
Because it is not what they kickstarted.
I think
it has developed into a game that, like,
great.
I did try this too. It plays pretty well. It's a fairly standard action RPG with a skill system that is somewhat more complex than Diablo's. They definitely borrowed a lot from Path of Exile.
Yeah, but
the game feels way better to play than Path of Exile.
Yeah. I mean, like, it is a way more fluid combat experience, and it is a slightly more comprehensible sphere grid system than Path of Exile.
Significantly more comprehensible, but with the added catch that you can spin rings of it to line them up differently if you want.
Yeah. So, yeah, like, I've not made it super far into the campaign, but, it's fairly challenging. Like, the combat is not super easy. You can get overwhelmed really easily. You're also kind of limited in the abilities that you have, but they all kind of synergize. I went with a melee build. Ash, what were you playing?
A mage. I started with a mage.
Okay. It seems like mage has way more room for growth early on than, like, a traditional fighter type. Because, like, I kind of only have a handful of abilities that I've found that I can actually use.
The abilities seem to fall into three classes, and either they require a melee weapon, or they require a staff, or they require, like, a ranged weapon. Some of the last can also be used with a dagger.
Yeah, I've found some dagger-specific abilities, too, that are non-ranged dagger only.
Okay. Yeah, I was definitely noticing that they broke their abilities into warrior, mage, and rogue.
Yeah, and I'm hoping as you go further, you can kind of have some opportunities for multiclassing a bit, but
you can multi-class more or less immediately, because like you can put on a catalyst and a sword, and then you can use warrior abilities and mage abilities.
Right.
It does limit your equipment loadout somewhat if you try to do this.
Well, and the other interesting scalar is that the actual gear you're equipping is kind of pushing you towards one play style or another as well. Because, like, there's heavy gear, and it's a lot of resist, soak damage type stuff. There's bruiser gear, which is more of a, brawlery kind of fighter. There's, like, ranger gear that I found that seems like it's kind of pushing it towards, ranged abilities. I don't remember if it was called Assassin or Shadow or something like that, but there's like another class of gear that's like your more roguey kind of gear. And then all of the magic gear has force shield instead of armor class. So that like you have a giant shield, but you have really low health underneath that giant shield.
I discovered that you take some most damage over time directly to your health rather than to your force shield. So that's fun.
Oh, yeah, that's real bad news for somebody that doesn't have a lot of health.
There is a passive ability that lets you take it on your force shield.
There's a lot of nice touches. Like, it does play like a traditional Diablo game. But the thing that I like is, like, so my default attack as a melee, if I have not been in combat for a period of time, that ability then all of a sudden acts as a gap closer. You have dodges, and like I think I had 4 pips worth of dodge, and it's this kind of system where when you dodge, it eats a pip, and then your pips slowly regenerate over time. But the gap closer didn't seem to consume any pips or anything. It was just a gimme if you've not been in combat for a while. Of the games that I've played that are ARPGs up and coming, I think this may have the most promise. I mean, Pagan is fine.
Pagan is cool, but it's a sort of a different style game.
It is. It's the problem I have with Pagan is the mini game feel that it has, to where all of the levels are like these really short skirmishes. It feels like maybe it started its life as a mobile game.
It almost certainly did.
And then turned into a PC game. Because it's definitely set up for short periods of play.
I mean, it doesn't have an energy system, but everything else about it is designed like a mobile game.
Right. Yeah, I absolutely think it had to have started its life as a mobile game. Lost Ark is not... Is it Lost Ark?
Lost Epoch.
No, Lost Epoch, yeah. It's just... Yeah. I'm not holding out any hope for that one. They have a very specific design ethic that doesn't include attack and move at the same time. And it feels real bad. It also doesn't have controller support, I don't think. Like, I could see that maybe making sense if you had controller support and then you were controlling it with a controller, but I think Lost Ark is the Korean game, right? That isn't over here. That's supposed to be really freaking cool.
Apparently.
Anyway.
That one's an actual MMO, I think.
Yeah.
Just with a different perspective.
And supposedly, Wolcen is going to launch sometime in January. Or at least, actually, no, it's entering open access.
Is that what they called it?
I think it's something like that, yeah. So, yeah, no, it's going from alpha to early access, basically. But the game that's there is actually really fun and playable. It is a game. I no longer would describe this as very alpha.
No, it seems pretty good.
So another thing that was announced this weekend, or this week, was a massive, like, broad changing update for Super Mario Maker 2.
Yep.
This actually prompted me to buy the game, finally.
Really?
Yeah. So I've not had a lot of time to mess around with it, but I've played, like, I've been playing my way through the little story mode that it has, but yeah, I absolutely want to play Zelda maps. I mean they won't be Zelda maps, but like Zelda 2 maps.
There'll be Zelda 2 maps.
I like Zelda 2. It's Coder and I think are it that like Zelda 2.
So yeah, a new update came out which introduced a couple of new features. Some of them are pretty important now to get to them, but the most important one is in Super Mario Brothers mode, so like the NES version. There's a new power-up, which is the Master Sword, which turns Mario into Link, and he can use L and R to shoot arrows, and he can aim those arrows either like straight ahead, up, or down, and they each have sort of an interesting arc to them. If he uses standard Y, he does a sword attack. If he presses down, he blocks. If he does up and Y, he pulls out a bomb to throw. And he also has a dash boots charge maneuver. And so that's a whole hunk of cool kit, and all of those can interact with the various other Mario Maker things to make some really interesting levels.
Okay, but I didn't hear Pogo jump in there anywhere.
Well, so wait a second. Yes, you can down air to do. Yes, you can down air, and it does like a very forceful down sword attack.
Okay.
So yes, and off of certain things that will cause Mario Maker 1 to bounce. This is really kind of awkward though, because it's the way it happens is you sort of freeze in the middle of the air while he like you freeze for maybe 5 frames, and then he goes into like it's like it's like a ground pound maneuver from other Mario games. So it's not nearly as like fluid as you might imagine, and some of the stuff you're trying to bounce off might make that a little tricky. Because one of the favorite things for creators to have you bounce off of right now is one of the other new things, which is spikes.
Spike from Mario 3.
Spike from Mario 3. He's that little green thing that you only see in, I want to say, 2 levels, and he pulls out a spike ball from his mouth, hovers it over his head, and then throws it. Well, in this game, he does that same thing, and that ball you can pogo bounce off of. You can also block it. If you hit it with I actually did a really cool level, which had a contraption that caused you to lose the level if you ever turned backwards. And so the whole point of the level was seeing how much you could get backwards momentum by using the sword in an interaction with a spike ball. But yeah, it's very fun to play as Link. I've been having a blast doing that. The other things, so there was Spike. There was also Pokies, which are just the little, like, cactus little guys that have the various segmented bodies. And you can have a Pokey as tall as you want. And you can also have snow Pokies, and you can also have snow spikes, which instead of throwing spike balls, throws snowballs. You can have spike balls on their own and snowballs on their own. And you also have the concept of frozen coin blocks now, which is like Mario 3. It's a block that has a coin in it that's frozen with ice, but if you hit it with a fire flower, it'll melt.
Except there are a lot of other sources of fire in Mario Maker.
There are a lot of other sources of fire in Mario Maker. If it gets hit with a Podoboo, if it gets hit with one of the upwards fire launchers, if it gets hit by Bowser fire, all of these are fires, all of these will cause it to melt.
Hope you didn't need to stand on that.
Yeah, I had a really cool, like, escape sequence that I was playing through where a Podoboo was, like, melting the bridge as I was running over it, and Podoboos were flying up and taking out sections of bridge ahead of me. This was another Link level, and so, like, one of the big tense moments was you have to, like, get a bomb and wait for the bomb to explode while you're watching the bridge under you melting away, and hope that the bomb goes off in time for you to get to safety without taking damage from the bomb, because if you take damage, you lose. It was fun.
I'm really impressed to see what they're doing with this Mario Maker. Like, I knew there was, like, in theory, once a demo that was a Zelda Maker, and it's interesting to see them put Link all the way in, at least from a Mario standpoint.
I mean, there is where what costumes turned into.
oh, I'm so happy that this is one of those things where, like, I am surprised this wasn't a DLC. This feels like a big amount. This was a lot of work, and this opens up, like, I'm glad that they're supporting this game because it opens up a lot of new play space and new possibility space.
I was super surprised that it wasn't a paid DLC as well, because like it seems like a lot of content, and it makes me wonder if we'll see other Nintendoverse characters showing up in Mario Maker.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, what would a Kirby be like?
I don't know how... See, Kirby's weird to me. Kirby does the thing that just completely trivializes most of Mario, which is not fall.
I mean, the cape already exists.
Yeah, but eventually, even with the cape, you can fall. Or you can design cape levels. Oh, yes.
No, I've seen some
yes.
terrible, terrible cape levels. Not like that design, like, this requires skills I don't have.
I actually did a really fun cape level that was a spin fly cape level.
What, where they make you turn around by spinning?
No. Does that even work in Mario Maker 2? I thought that was only in Super Mario World.
I guess I don't know if that works in Mario Maker.
I mean, it might. Actually, I think it is. I know there's some weird cape tech that people have discovered. Like, the cape techniques are one of those things that are, if you are a cape technician, you're only playing levels that are cape technique, and then other people who play Mario at a very high level are mostly not playing those. Because they are a very different skill set, I guess. No, I was more thinking of the like, instead of doing a normal fly, you can like spin jump, and that'll do a spinning flying maneuver.
Yeah.
And so the thing with that is it will let you ride a ceiling, whereas you'll bonk your head with the normal flying. It'll also go faster. But yeah, you'll have to let me know if you find any good levels. I spent a good part of the afternoon idly trying to beat some of Davey Reedon's levels. Those are serious business, though.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get, like, the baseline before I start digging into complex levels.
Oh man, we should see if... This is the update that I still think I'm wanting them to do, is the ability to play with your friends update.
Did they not put that in?
Did that happen?
That happened already.
Oh, did it? Okay. I'll have to double check. We should play some co-op levels then.
I've seen too many streamers playing together for them to have not added that.
Yeah, I think that something happened along the way, and Nintendo budged on the whole you can't play with your friends in custom levels thing. I don't know how, like, I don't know what setup happened to cause that, but like, I definitely know that's at least partially available.
Yeah, the 1.1 update added that.
Oh, that was the other thing that they added, was the Ninja speedruns. Which is Nintendo releasing, like, Nintendo-developed levels for everyone to competitively speedrun.
Like, where did Ninja come from?
An enemy in Mario 2.
Really?
I think also one of the other ones, too, but stories from originally.
I did not remember this character at all.
Oh, yeah.
All he does in Mario 2, however, is jump straight up and down. That's all it does. Mostly you jump off of it. You use it to reach higher platforms. Since, you don't defeat enemies by jumping on them in Mario 2.
Mario 2 was a weird game, and yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They're also in Mario World, in exactly one level.
Is it one of the special levels?
It's Bowser's Castle.
Oh. I am blanking out this entirely. I mean, I guess other Switch news is that they released some more games, or are about to release some more games.
Some actually good games for Nintendo Switch Online.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that there's Star Fox 2, I think basically we have everything that was on the Super Nintendo Classic now. I was talking to my wife about that, because she noticed that, like, the Sony PlayStation version was, like, for $30 in somebody's ad this week. And, like, I really think the Nintendo mini console thing is no longer even vaguely worth it now that, the Switch games exist as part of the Switch Online package. Because I think most everything that's in there is playable other than, I guess, wasn't Final Fantasy on the...
I think FF3 was in there. FF6, rather.
Yeah, so that's not there yet.
I don't remember if Chrono Trigger was in or not.
I would love so much if, Square started releasing the Final Fantasy games for the Switch. Like, I would like to see a port of the advanced version of Final Fantasy V for the Switch.
I mean, I would like to see a lot of GBA games come out that have not come out on anything else.
I would love to see Metroid Fusion on it.
I would like to see the Battle Network series, but, whatever.
The Mega Man Battle Network?
Yes.
I mean, I think they could make such serious bank just porting a lot of 3DS games, too.
I mean, Capcom has realized that they are starting to be able to make some money reselling these things, so they've started. Like,
so
the
wait a
Zero
second.
and Phoenix games are coming out for the Switch this coming, early next year.
I mean, there is some technology 3DS had that I realize most people didn't use, but would not port well to the Switch.
You mean the 3D part?
Yes.
How
Nobody
many
cares.
games was that important for?
Somewhere approaching 0, I would imagine.
Let's say, can you think of any?
I mean, Super Mario 3D Land cared because it was an early game and therefore they wanted to really show off 3D features, and so it has got a lot of things that don't make sense if you're not looking at the screen in 3D, which also made me like it somewhat less because I never played in 3D, but it was an attempt.
And I guess the other question is how many 3DS games actually did something compelling with their extra screen?
Probably a few. Not that one. Not really Zelda. The games I'm thinking of that something compelling with the extra screen are mostly these are DS games. Things like Monster Tale, Meteos.
I don't know. I'm rapidly approaching the point where I'm bumping other Nintendo consoles out of my mind, for my favorite Nintendo console. Because I'm playing the hell out of the Switch. And I'm actually playing it now in handheld mode, thanks to the Hori Split Plaid Pro that probably nobody else likes, but it makes the entire experience significantly better for me.
Other people clearly liked it. It was sold out for a long time.
Yeah, but I don't know how much of that is it was legitimately sold out, or if it's just all the people who wanted to review it were trying to get copies of it, because at least at first, the only way you could get it was an import copy. I think I got mine when they started actually stocking them in North America. But, I mean, the only negative that I've found is that kind of bugs me is the inability to turn on the Switch with the gamepad. But, even that can be mitigated. I just get used to having to hit the power button again. Okay, Kodra.
Yes?
I hear there's a turn-based mod for Pathfinder Kingmaker.
There is! Yeah, I think Ash found this. It's been out for a while.
I didn't know this existed until somebody mentioned it when I was reading news about the follow-up game that AggroChat is making.
Ooh, what follow-up game is AggroChat making? Is it another Pathfinder game?
It's another Pathfinder game, Wrath of the Righteous. I'm
not familiar with that module.
This might not be a module. It might not be a favorite module.
That's fair. So what I would say is...
Oh, no, it is. It is based on an existing Venture module.
Exciting. Yeah, so what the mod does is basically, as soon as you enter combat, it rolls initiative, and everybody gets to take their turn. Like, you can do 5-foot steps, you can do, try and set up flanks, and really, one of the things that always frustrated me about games like Baldur's Gate, games like this is that all of the tactics that I know and enjoy when I'm doing tabletop role-playing with friends, you can't really do in these action RPGs. Everything's happening simultaneously. You can't really bring the setups that really let you feel like you are a team working together and like your tactics are firing on multiple cylinders.
The intent, which I don't like and don't like playing this way, is that you frequently pause in order to enact these tactics.
The problem is even if you're like frequently pausing to enact those tactics, you're still like, even like as you are moving, the enemy could be moving too, and then suddenly your move has put you out of position because like you were just trying to get a flank. And I honestly do not know if there's a way of doing a 5-foot step in the base game, which is
I don't think so.
Yeah, and like that's a key tactical repositioning component of a normal Pathfinder or normal D&D game. Being able to like, I'm going to step around so that I can get into a flanking position. Like there were a lot of character classes that were not very good, in my opinion. And now there's a lot more that's pretty powerful, it feels like. I'm playing a wizard. It's very fun. Like, I can do delaying actions so that I can, like, delay my big, beefy fighters so that they can get my wizard's buffs and then go into battle and mess stuff up. I don't know. I'm having a lot of fun. I think that I understand, like, the like playing these games in real time. It's definitely faster to play them in real time, but it definitely feels like I have less control. There's a lot more save scumming in those because I just die. Like, I don't really understand why I died, but I died because I wasn't able to react to things shifting under me. Do you know if their next version is going to have a turn-based mode out of the box?
I have no idea. It seems unlikely.
Yeah.
The only time I can think of a company adding something like this is Pillars of Eternity 2 patched in a turn-based mode. But mostly this has just been the domain of mods, if at all.
I really should try that patched in turn-based mode.
It is amusing, though. I am, like, one of the things that's going on with me right now is, like, I am a lot less video game-centric because my brain is all Pathfinder 2 all of the time right now. I really hope that this company continues making these games and then ends up making a Pathfinder 2 version of things that does have a turn-based mode, because I really like the combat sequences in Pathfinder 2.
It seems like it would be very hard to make a real-time with pause style game with Pathfinder 2 structure.
I feel like it's okay if we stop making real-time with pause games. Like, gonna throw that out there.
I kind of do too, but some people like them. But yeah, Divinity Original Sin, the first one, kind of showed me that it didn't have to be this way.
Yeah.
It's also possible to go the other direction and get a game like Dragon Age 2 or Inquisition. It's just that real time with pause is an awkward middle ground between a turn-based game and an action game.
Yes. Yeah, like that was the thing is, most times I'm doing real time with pause, I actually wish it was just more of a straight action game. I wish I was playing, like, wow, and I realize this also has a pause mode, so I guess I'm sort of telling on myself, but I sort of wish it was more FF11, where there was an AI that was doing things, and we were all supposed to be doing our own, like, my character I was controlling was doing its own thing.
11?
You mean 12?
12.
Yeah. I really liked the Gambit system. Like, I like being able to set up the AI of each of the characters to do a thing, and then, like, I don't want to touch them ever. I only want to control one character, but I want to be able to set up what I want the other characters to be doing, like, but I only really want to fiddle with one character. I mean, that was... 12 had the Gambit system, right? Or was that a different game?
Yep, that's 12.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I have really enjoyed games that have competent AI. Anything else on Kingmaker before we move on?
Nope.
Okay, so this is a topic that has kind of been rolling around a bit, and bounced for a number of weeks. But, Tam, at some point recently, you played some Star Trek Online?
Yeah, I've been like popping into a bunch of old MMOs, and it's sort of interesting to see a lot of these older MMOs, like especially pre-WoW or like some of the post-WoW early post-WoW MMOs are still around and still doing stuff and still updating. And they've had
Lotro several times on the show, and it's still updating constantly.
Yeah, Lotro. I mean, I currently can't even look at Lotro because for some reason my account is banned until 2038.
But
okay,
What?
I have no idea. I reactivated. I logged in, checked that my account was still functional, tried to log into the game, got an indecipherable error, looked up the indecipherable error. And all of the community commentary is like, try to log into the forums and see if you're banned. So I tried to log into the forums, and I am banned for no reason given until 2038. So I have put in a couple of customer support tickets, but their customer support is not what you might call responsive or possibly even existent.
It was never fantastic, and it's only gotten worse since Standing Stone took over.
Yeah.
So, like, I guess I'm just not going to play that game or give them any money. I mean, I was interested in seeing where it was, but not going to happen, I guess. But, like, I hopped into DDO, and DDO has added, like, multiple new worlds. Like, you can play in Forgotten Realms, you can play in Greyhawk.
Yeah. Like you don't even have to start in Eberron anymore. You can just start out as a Forgotten Realms character. And...
I also knew you could start in Forgotten Realms because Eberron was not the most popular thing ever. Apparently,
I mean,
Eberron.
I like Eberron. It's cool, but I also like Forgotten Realms.
It's fine.
But yeah, the realms in Greyhawk are like the classic worlds that the majority of people will know.
Yeah, and they've added a whole bunch of stuff. They've added like new classes even. And another one that I hopped into was Star Trek Online. And I remember when I first started playing that, it was like, my takeaway when I first played Star Trek Online was that you really needed to be just a super hardcore Star Trek fan to be into it. Because they did a couple of things. It does like, when you take a mission, they function like quests. You go to an instanced space where you do quest content. But when the game launched, pretty much every quest followed the same structure. Fly to a place, interact with thing, away team beam down and have some fights, beam out, have some fights in space, have a third act fight that is either in space or on the ground, mission complete. It was like, they were super rubber stampy. It was the same, like even when the details were different, they all had this very samey feel to them. And it was like, okay. But you got to fly around in a starship. You could go onto your bridge. You could customize your bridge crew and your uniforms and stuff. So it's like, if you're really into Star Trek, you could get really into it. In the intervening time, they've added a whole ton of mission variety with like puzzle missions and narrative missions and like space, go around and scan things in space missions. Like it's a lot less trying to pigeonhole Star Trek into a you fight all the time game. Although it is that, there's a lot more combat than I normally associate with Star Trek, which they more or less justify by saying that all of the ways you can play are set in some kind of major conflict. But they've also added like different timelines. So you can make a character in the original series. You can make a character in Discovery. You can make a character in whatever the post Next Generation timeline is. And they all have different ships. You can go to, you show up to Earth in the modern day, for lack of a better term, and it's this like giant sprawling space station. You can go to Earth in the original series, and it's like a shoebox in the sky that's decked out in egregiously 70s decor. I think that when you're playing in the original series, as an original series character, there's a like film grain effect that's going on all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got this, it's this extremely retro feel. They pull the signs, they pull the sound effects. So you've got the very different sound effects. Like, it's very thorough. I still think that you need to at least like Star Trek to get into it, but it's a much more interesting game moment to moment. And I kind of like that what you have is like, there's your character, but then there's also your ship and your crew, and they're all relevant.
Well, and your crew really are basically your gear, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. Because you control a party, basically. You control an away team.
Are there like... So that's interesting. Are there like group content things?
Yes.
So how does that work?
They're basically like fleet maneuvers, where it's like, oh hey, whatever's happening is too big for just a ship to handle. I've done a couple of them, and there were like, I mean, the one that I did was like the early intro, hop in, fight a big fleet of ships with your fleet of ships, while also like, what was it? It was like powering down damaged like wrecks so that they didn't explode. Like, I think if I remember correctly, the conceit was something like, this planet got attacked and a bunch of their big ships are kind of wrecked in orbit, and if any of those wrecks explode, they can either crash down on the planet and deal a ton of damage, or like disrupt the planet's sensitive satellite stuff. I'm sort of glossing over your standard Star Trek technobabble. And so you have like, it works best if your team breaks into two groups, where one group is fighting off the enemy ships and the other ones are sort of flanking them to disable the exploding ships. Because you sort of have to do both at the same time, or you won't have quite... There's a variety of ways you could approach it, is the impression I got, but the favored method seemed to be one person goes and disables the ships while the other ones, fly around fighting. But that's the only one I've seen. I think there's some potentially cool ones where you like, part of your team is on the ground, part of your team is in the sky, but I don't know how well that works or if it does. But I also just like, it's not really a game where the group content is a great big thing. It's kind of I want to fly around, do stuff, play some very Star Trek-y stories.
They've also apparently, taken the opportunity to follow up on a lot of, stuff left over from various Star Trek shows, particularly like all the repercussions of things that Voyager got up to.
Yeah. That's another piece that I find really interesting, is because it does, like, the original series character happen, like, you play that character shortly after the events of the original series. And so, like, the characters from that series are still around, but they're like doing other stuff. So there's a little bit of like, where are they now? And, who does, who's doing what stuff? And like, what happened when various major events occurred.
And the thing that I thought was cool, as I've tracked this for a while, because I get like press releases from Perfect World on all this content, and it's kind of cool because like anytime they readdress these things, they go and get the original voice actors that did the characters most of the time to like reprise that role.
Yeah, it's really consistent voice acting. Like, a lot of the voice acting isn't great. You can very much tell when content is newer because the voice acting is much better.
The only thing that's kind of sad about the state of it right now is, for a long time, both Neverwinter and Star Trek Online had user-generated content, and some time ago that was all patched out in both games. And like, there was a lot of really cool content that you could just run around and mess with, that were people had created missions and stories and, extremely elaborate ones, and all that is basically gone.
Yeah, that's definitely a thing that feels like it's missing. Or I don't know if it feels like it's missing, but it definitely is something that I notice not existing, because that was really like people writing their own episodes was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that they do some weird stuff with ship design, but like there's a lot more variety in the ship design than your standard, saucer body nacelles look, that like incredibly familiar Star Trek look. And in fact, none of the ships that you start in are that design.
Well, they have to let you aspire to something, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
Yeah, you don't just get a Constitution class ship as a starting captain.
Oh, sure. That ship you start in is definitely not that.
You got to start out flying like the Pegasus or something.
Is it that bad? It might be that bad.
The one-legged goat.
It's not quite that bad, but yeah, it's close. You start on a Miranda class, which is like a big dish with 2 underslung nacelles, and it is not the fanciest ship ever. But it's neat. It's neat seeing like they do a good job of, hey, this is, in a lot of cases, I think they go a little bit far and like the ships are a little bit too fancifully designed, but for the most part, I'm a big fan. They do cool ship designs. I like that one of the things that they've done is you can get, and it's usually purchased on the shop, but you can get a ship that levels with you. Because otherwise, every time you achieve a new rank, you could get a new ship, but that meant that you weren't like it had a new ship. It was like a different entire ship, and that's not always the like Star Trek feel you want. But it is pretty fun rolling around in. You can roll around in like either the Enterprise D or the refit from the last episode of Next Generation that has 3 nacelles in the giant cannon, or something else entirely.
I think they even have like the crazy quad nacelle designs. They're like the stealth ships and such.
Yeah, there's all kinds of crazy designs. They're also, the other thing that I think is pretty funny about them is that they make a very particular point of making sure the scaling is right. And that's not something that you necessarily ever get to appreciate in the series or even just in general. Because, like, you're used to the one ship that's, like, the center of the thing.
So you don't always remember just how absurdly large the Enterprise D is.
Yeah. It's like you can fly around in a ship that's basically, like, a refit Constitution class from the original series. And then you fly past, an Enterprise D from Next Generation, and you're like, that ship is huge. That ship is ridiculously gigantic. And that's, like, a medium-sized ship at this point. And so it's kind of fun when you're like, and one of the things is, sure, you have a huge, ridiculous ship, but your actual, like the actual starship has like maneuverability stats, and all of your weapons have firing arcs. So you are doing, it's very like Sid Meier's Pirates style ship combat.
Or Starfleet battles, possibly.
Or Starfleet battles, yeah. Similar kind of thing where it's like you want to put enemies in your firing arcs and maneuver around. So you do a lot of like flying in circles around things. Like your combats look like fights do in the actual show and in the movies, which is great. Like that's exactly how they ought to look. But there's advantages to having a tiny ship because you're super maneuverable. Whereas if you have like just a enormous, ridiculous, Galaxy or better class ship, like you're not going to move, but you have 300,000 guns. So whichever way you're pointed, you're probably shooting lasers at somebody. That for me was a big adjustment because you can also play Klingons and Romulans and something else that I don't actually know anything about, but I'm guessing it's from DS9.
Who?
They have like an ominous sounding name.
From Cardassians, Jem'Hadar.
No. I think maybe Jem'Hadar?
I mean, the Jem'Hadar are pretty ominous, and they are from Deep Space Nine.
It's the Dominion.
So yeah, the Dominion in general. So
yeah,
Jem'Hadar and so forth.
Yeah, which I don't really know anything about, but you can play as the Dominion. That seemed like a thing. But if you play as a Klingon, you start in a bird of prey, which is fine. I'm used to that ship, except it's got only forward-facing guns.
Yeah.
with pretty narrow firing arcs. And that completely, like that one little change completely changes the way that I fly around in that ship.
Also,
like,
it makes a lot of sense.
It makes a ton of sense. And like when it changes, it's really neat because it changes my, rather than having like a big boat that kind of like sails around firing a zillion guns at things, I'm making like, I swoop in and make strikes and then get out and recloak so I can come out of cloak again and make more strikes. And that it's weirdly fitting. But yeah, it's also there's a ton of systems that I haven't even started trying to make sense of. It's just fun to fly around in ships and do stuff.
Probably the worst thing that I would say about Star Trek Online and Neverwinter to the same extent is both are games with a ridiculous number of currencies, and it is super obtuse to determine which of the currencies you need to buy which things.
Yeah.
Because, like, it's got a very obfuscated cash shop.
Yeah, it's completely nonsense. I bought a ship, and I just fly around in that ship, and I just don't care. Like, I'm not going to bother caring until the game gives me a reason to care, and it hasn't so far. So when I get around to actually caring, I'll figure out those other currencies. But yeah, it floods me with tons and tons of random currency. I don't know what any of it means or why I should care about any of it or which ones matter. But I'm not invested enough to have to worry about that. So I am not going to until I do actually have to worry about it.
Okay, what is One Step from Eden?
So about 30 minutes ago, I was talking about how much I missed Mega Man Battle Network.
Uh-huh.
One Step from Eden is somebody who really missed Mega Man Battle Network decided to start a Kickstarter to make a game that has the battle system from Mega Man Battle Network. And the game structure they picked is a sort of roguelite style, like Slay the Spire, Dicey Dungeons. Go on a run, try to get all the way through with defeating various battles, maybe some camping, This was actually a little weird. Let's skip that part for now.
Okay.
Yeah, you are on a grid, and you move around on a grid, and you have certain attacks that you get in a deck-like manner that you aim at enemies on the other side of the grid before they kill you with their attacks.
This looks intense.
Basically, all of their previous screenshots are overly intense, but they did change it from a 3x3 to a 4x4 in order to allow for some more ridiculous things to go on. It's a little less cramped than Battle Network is. The converse here is that it's also harder to box your opponents in. The structure is, I want to say, kind of like Risk of Rain. It's definitely a roguelike. You unlock more options, but not necessarily more power as you go through each run. Like I beat three bosses and unlocked them as playable characters. There appear to be some others that I could theoretically do the same thing with, if I could ever get to them without dying. The increased space allows for things like hazards and hostages that maybe you want to, not kill these people so that they can heal you at the end of battle. Or you really want to take care of this thing that's right in front of you, or it's going to drop a 500 damage nuke on the entire field in 30 seconds. So you get little mini puzzles using this combat system in addition to combat. There are normal enemies, there are boss fights, and it's pretty great.
So is it both a Kickstarter and an early access?
It is currently the only thing currently available generally is the demo. It's supposed to launch in January on PC and Switch. The Kickstarter was this past January, so whether or not it comes out this coming January is up in the air. But the devs have recently been giving away a lot of copies, at least of the demo, the beta rather. So their Twitter is a good place to check and see if you can get a copy. Their Twitter or their Discord.
So is this a full version of the game? Because I see a demo.
As part of the Kickstarter, there is also a beta, which has a lot more than the demo does. Although they keep updating the demo as they update the beta.
Aha. So is it Is it a roguelike or a roguelite? Are you getting more powerful, or is it like the one true run could get you there?
Like I mentioned earlier, it appears to be a roguelike. You unlock more options, but it doesn't appear that you unlock more power.
Cool.
So kind of like Risk of Rain, where if you know what you're doing, you can beat the game immediately. It seems to be like that, but it's not easy. It starts out okay, and all of the dev screenshots, they like to post gifs of it being incredibly intense. And because eventually it gets that intense. Mostly this is a combination of enemies each have their own pattern, and sometimes there are a lot of enemies, but also some boss attacks are just complicated. This happened in Battle Network a lot too, where you get formations with enemies that like to restrict horizontal mobility, enemies that like to restrict vertical mobility at the same time.
Uh-huh.
It's just a little weird playing a game designed by somebody who thinks the hardest parts of those games were too easy. So that's definitely a thing.
Well, we have anything else before we wrap things up?
Sounds like no.
I will say next season of Destiny starts on Tuesday.
Yep, Season of the Dawn. We're going back to Mercury to get Saint 14. We're going to be allowed to use our sparrows on Mercury.
Freaking finally.
I didn't realize you couldn't before.
It's one of the things that made Mercury terrible.
Yeah, for whatever reason. Sparrows don't work on Mercury.
I mean, I think in part because it's a much smaller map than any of the other planets. Like, it's basically just one area instead of, half a dozen or so linked together. But it seems like they're going to be enlarging it. Because we broke time. Yay, us.
Nice.
What?
Look.
The
we
premise...
didn't break time.
Yes, we did.
We did not. Osiris broke time.
Okay, but we helped him. So the whole thing with Mercury is the Vex are on Mercury, and they've got this thing called the Infinite Forest, which is basically a giant computer that hunts through timelines looking for the timeline where they win. And so this most recent season has involved invasions of Vex and ultimately us going into the Infinite Forest to murder every single version of the Undying Mind throughout all of time and space.
Because
and apparently...
That's clearly a great idea.
Yes. Well, Ikora came up with it, so obviously. So apparently in doing this, we have managed to break time. And so now the Cabal are going to try and rewrite history so that they won the Red War. And so we need to stop him from doing that and also get Saint 14 back. Because I guess since he died inside the Infinite Forest, we can pull a Barry Allen and yank him out before his death. And I would guess, eventually he'll have to go back, probably. But that could be centuries from now. So whatever.
So the long story short is we're probably getting a really amazing shotgun.
Yes. Because we have to give Saint 14 his shotgun back that we took from his dead body.
So
it's weird.
So here's a really important question. If you've broken time, does that mean they've brought Cade 6 back?
It's only broken on Mercury so far, and Cade 6 didn't die on Mercury. That he was once stuck in a Vex teleportation loop. Possibly it also teleported him through time in addition to space. So there's always a way.
A copy of him is in the network. That's a thing.
Like we could theoretically recover him from the Vex, but that probably mostly relies on Nathan Fillion having time, and who knows if that'll ever happen.
I don't know. He has to die very spectacularly in a Suicide Squad movie.
What character is he playing in the Suicide Squad movie?
I don't know, but they released that list of all of the Suicide Squad people, and he's
on it. Yeah, I don't think we know yet who he's playing. He's just on the big list.
The big list that features the catchphrase "Don't get too attached."
I mean, it's the Suicide Squad. It's kind of in the name.
I realize it's just that was not how the first Suicide Squad went, and I actually don't even think
because they did it wrong.
Fair. Is the Suicide Squad known for having a high death rate of its main cast?
Yes.
Okay.
Immensely so. When it was introduced, they killed off a guy in the first issue, and more often than not, at least one member died in a given story arc. The body count was high. This was the book where they sent all of the C and D list villains that nobody else cared about, because if one of them died, so what? But notably, Peter Capaldi is also on this list.
Yeah, Peter Capaldi. There's a lot of people on that list. Taika Waititi's on that list.
Sean Gunn is on the list, but that shouldn't really surprise anybody.
Oh, maybe someday.
No, not Sean Bean. Sean Gunn.
Oh.
Sean Gunn. Because James Gunn is directing, so of course Sean is in the movie.
I've heard that Sean Bean is no longer accepting parts for movies where he dies.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
It's too obvious.
And notably, I haven't seen him in movies recently, so...
Maybe people just want him to die.
But yeah, new season of Destiny 2 next Tuesday. So, like, if you're listening to this the day we posted it, like 2 days,
Yup.
promises to be pretty awesome.
The seasonal content was really great this last time.
I get the impression, like, some of the more intense players were disappointed in it. I enjoyed it.
I thought it was a great pace. Like,
I've also got, like, 5 billion things from previous seasons still to do, so maybe that's part of it.
yeah. I have a massive backlog, including a thing that we're going to have to recruit our own Suicide Squad to get done.
Yeah. Yeah, when the mission sends you on an epic reprise of a strike, that they're serious. It's going to be rough.
It was a thing. We weren't successful. We just decided we couldn't do it.
I mean, we made it to the final room, and but basically like the penultimate stage of the final boss. But it is a bit much.
Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the show, and we will see you again next week.
See
Good
ya.
night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
See you.